The 50% cash reserve requirement imposed on banks by the Central Bank of Nigeria was ultimately to protect the Nigerian economy. That's according to the Central Bank Governor, Mr. Sanusi Lamido Sanusi. Now, he spoke to the Apex Bank chief at the recent launch of a new over-the-counter platform in Nigeria. He also had a few things to say about speculation surrounding his last tenure as CBN governor. Take a look.
Economic decisions always have costs. I'm aware that some of the banks obviously will lose some revenue because of the non-remunerated nature of CRR. Some of them have been able to compensate for that by increasing lending rates, because if you look at the books, the interest margins have actually increased for many of the banks. But you know, it's weighing the 0.5 or 0.3% impact on bank profitability against its impact on the exchange rate and inflation. We have to take decisions. I've heard the arguments that there are costs, but the issue is not whether there are costs or there are no costs. The issue is, are these costs sufficient to risk a higher rate of inflation? Are they sufficient to risk a lower exchange rate? Remember, at the time we did this, the Indian rupee had lost almost 20% of its value. The South African rand had lost 13% of its value. The Ghanaian cedi had lost about 12% of its value. The Brazilian real had lost a lot of money, a loss of its value. So ask yourself, if the naira had lost 20% and it was at 190 naira to the dollar, what would have been the implications on the economy, on manufacturers, on traders, on inflation, on reserves, on portfolio investors? So I think people need to understand that when we take these decisions, it's not that we are oblivious to the impact on some segments of the economy. It is that we've got to weigh the pros and cons and take a decision. And sometimes the wider macroeconomic stability interests they have to take precedence, to the extent that we're not really creating financial system instability.
Okay, now finally, there's so much talk now about the successor, and I've actually had one or two rumors that you might actually believe in before the end of your term. Your thoughts on that?
Well, you must never believe rumors. That's one. On succession, the central bank governor never comments on its successor. It's natural that if you've announced that you will not be seeking a second term, people who believe they are interested in the job or qualify for the job will look for it, and people who believe they have candidates will push for it. It's an interesting and exciting period. What's important for me is to focus on what's left in my term, focus on what I have to achieve, and make sure I leave behind an institution that will continue with the critical strategic initiatives that we've started.